Coming up in this episode.
I love astrology, but there's an empowerment that you get from human design that you don't get, I think, from astrology. The context that it gives you for how you can create success and alignment, in a way that's truly sort of unique for you. You just don't get that with astrology.
You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos.
What's up, beautiful people? Thank you for being here once again. Thank you for taking the time to intentionally check in with this podcast, whatever it is that you're doing. We just really appreciate your listenership, and we love being able to continue to do what we do. This podcast was so much born out of the idea of becoming who you were born to be. Self-knowledge is the foundation of all knowledge. Know thyself, says the Oracle of Delphi. And this conversation fits perfectly into that category and into the core ethos of all these conversations, which is that you are a unique individual that's never existed before, will never exist again. And how do you just double down on that? Because for me, that's been the most empowering knowledge in my life, especially going back to 2020, enrolling in Michael Tessarian's mystery school, discovering my personal decanate, reading my descriptors. And it's like, damn, how does this card know so much about me? And so much of the previous ways that I behaved and acted in my life, or the things that I was told by my family or by my parents that, were the wrong way to do things. It's like, no, that's me. I have a unique design. I've got a unique way. I've got unique interests. I've got unique gifts that other people don't have. And obviously that's not an accident. Obviously that's not random. So how do I begin to build my life in a way where I can express these gifts naturally and live more in flow and live more according to my design? And around that time, a year later, I kind of met Yerasimos, and he introduced me to human design, which was just as life-changing in the same way. And so here we have Amy Lee joining us for this discussion. Anything you want to say on this, bro?
No, man, I thought everything you said was spot on and well said, and I agree.
Yeah.
These systems have had a huge impact on my life and my trajectory and my acceptance of self and just being even more comfortable with who I am and how I go about the world. So I always love having the opportunity to have these types of conversations, and it was really enjoyable to have this one with Amy.
Yeah. Earlier this year, Yerasimos and I recorded an episode called Human Design Foundations, and that is episode 236. So if you're brand new to human design, if you have no idea about the types, the profiles, the different authorities, strategies, etc., we do recommend you listen to that episode to get a foundational understanding. Otherwise, this episode may go a little bit over your head in terms of some of the language that we're using, which is quite specific to human design. But one thing I do want to say is that this is a system of knowledge that can change your life, that can lead to more authenticity, more alignment, more coherence. And we're very grateful to be able to have these conversations and offer them to you. Right before we bring Amy on, I just want to shout out our incredible Friends of the Truth community. We're at the 100-member mark now, so it's amazing. We started this community in 2022, and I don't know how, but we just continue to attract the most awesome people imaginable. Like these people are, beyond friends. Like it's family, and just people who they seek truth, but not in any rigid way, not in any dogmatic way. They understand that they are a multitude of parts. They're able to laugh. They're able to be serious. They're able to discuss controversial, triggering topics, and yet still step back and understand that one might not have all the answers. So inside Friends of the Truth, we're doing 6 to 7 calls a month, plus an awesome private Telegram community, which is just absolutely invaluable. If you'd like to hang out with us, you can head to hereforthetruth.com/FOTT. And shout out to every single human being that took advantage of our Wrath self-guided sale this past week. We are so stoked for the journey that you guys are going to go on for the next 10 weeks. This program does change lives. It's done it time and time again. And we're so excited to be able to offer this now in a way where you can go through it on your own with lifetime access and just really absorb this knowledge, go through the actions, the contemplations, the integration, and change your life. For those that want to learn more about Rise Above the Herd, you can find that on our website as well at hereforthetruth.com/RATH, which is an acronym for Wrath. Please enjoy this conversation with Amy Lee. Amy Lee is a professional astrologer, human design analyst, and energy and nervous system practitioner devoted to helping others live and lead with alignments. Her work bridges the practical and the poetic, blending human design, astrology, Semitic wisdom, and grounded leadership to guide individuals and visionaries towards deeper self-trust, authenticity, and ease. Rooted in the ethos of coherence over hustle, Amy's teachings remind us that true success isn't born from force or striving, but from energetic clarity, rhythm, and the courage to live in alignment with one's design. Absolutely love that. Welcome to Here for the Truth, Amy.
Hey, Joel. Hey, Erasmus. Thanks for having me. Excited to chat today.
Yeah, us too. A couple big human design fans over here. I was introduced to human design through Erasmus when we met nearly 5 years ago, and Erasmus has been into it for a lot longer than that. But one way we always like to kick off these conversations is we'd like to dive a little bit deeper into your personal hero's journey. So like for you, what were some of the major rites of passage or main catalyzing moments that led you down your path?
So I always go back to 2012. I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible. Sometimes brevity is not my strongest gift though. But
No
yeah,
worries.
2012 was like a huge year for me. I think that was probably the most catalytic year of my life. So prior to 2012, I was very much in the sort of party girl, drinking. I was in my early 20s and in university and just pretty lost. I'm a projector. So I was also like, burning the candle at both ends and just, had a real interest in health and fitness and looking good, but it was all coming from this place of, you know, not loving myself, basically. And I had just a really big year in 2012. I went through a really significant like relationship ending that was, really, really difficult for me at the time. I had a family member pass away from cancer. And then a couple months later, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So I had this like very Pluto
Mhm.
journey, and it really shifted like my whole direction. All of a sudden, like I couldn't drink and do all the things I was doing. And that was the start of my, I guess, spiritual awakening too. So pretty young. So I was 23 when all of that happened and just changed my whole life. I lost a lot of friendships because all of a sudden I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to party. I became interested in more like natural health, eating organic, very obsessed with endocrine disruptors, having an autoimmune disease, Anyway, and then that just led me on a journey into energy and health and healing. And yeah, like just I guess a bit of a revolution for me. I went back to study, I'm a bit of I'm an eternal student. I'm a 5-1 as well. So yeah, yeah. So
Same here.
eternal student. Yeah. So I'm always studying and learning something, that I decided I was just going to start studying things more for the joy and the pleasure of it. So I went and studied fashion design, and then I went and studied astrology. And it was at the end of my astrology studies when I was starting to give readings that I found human design. And then for me, that was like the missing piece. I know a lot of projectors talk about finding human design and how they, there can be a bit of bitterness about being a projector. No one wants to be a projector. Everyone wants to be a manifestor or a generator. And for me, it was the opposite. I knew before I even looked my chart up, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm definitely a projector. I know bitterness so well. Like
You kind of read the descriptors before you did your own chart and you were like, I'm that.
totally.
Then oh, wow.
That's cool.
Totally. I had no doubt that I was a projector. And so for me, that was the missing piece. And then that's why I just became so obsessed with human design, because it helped me so much. Astrology had always was really helpful on my journey and my path, but it was really human design that gave me the language and the context for why I felt so different, why my energy felt different, why I constantly went through these cycles of burnout and fatigue, why I just felt like I couldn't keep up or was trying to keep up, but felt just contracted and like I was forcing all the time. And yeah, it was it was really affirming for me to sort of realize like, yeah, the reason things have felt so hard, it's because I've spent my whole life trying to be a generator, or not even a generator, a weird generator manifestor, dysfunctional hybrid thing that's So yeah, and then that's just been my journey since then. I started my business in 2018, and um yeah, this is the longest job I've ever had. I had a real tendency of moving on in careers and jobs every 2 years because it's like, oh, I can feel this isn't working for me. And the solution was always, okay, well, I need to change something. So I'll change my job, rather than looking at the deeper kind of, energetic reason for that.
That's cool. Yeah, my wife is a projector as well.
Mm.
So yeah, there's something else I wanted to say on that, and then I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, this is what I'm gonna say. Okay. So it's the one thing I do love about human design. I mean, I'm a fan of astrology. I haven't personally delved super, super deep into it, like from a place of like where I feel comfortable I could give someone a reading. But I do love what separates human design, especially when you think of type and strategy and authority. And so hearing you talk about being a projector. Like that is very unique in terms of the description of a projector and what they navigate that I think human design really highlights that I think can really allow a projector to really accept themselves and love themselves in such a unique way. Not to say that knowing your chart can't do that also, but I just feel like human design just adds something into the mix that I really appreciated.
I feel like, I love astrology, but there's an empowerment that you get from human design that you don't get, I think, from astrology. And yeah, like you said, the context that it gives you for why you're, you know, how you can create success and alignment, in a way that's truly sort of unique for you. You just don't get that with astrology. And astrology, I don't know if you've dived into like the history of human design,
Mhm.
the teaching in that we were seven-centered beings and we
Yep.
evolved into nine-centered beings. And, I think astrology is really helpful if it's adapted to being a nine-centered system and useful for the nine-centered being, whereas astrology was created by and for seven-centered beings. And so that's why we see a lot of people, going to astrologers and putting the astrologer in the position of the authority, like, tell me what to do. When should I get married? When should I do this
Mm.
thing? And the whole point of human design, like in contrast to that, is it's about empowering you as the authority. It always comes back to that. And so, yeah, I find astrology still to be really helpful if we look at it in that context, and we're still empowering people to be, the decision makers in the process.
Yeah, totally. That's my general ethos when it comes to like any system of self knowledge or divination. Oh, did I just freeze? I'm back. With any system of self knowledge, it's like you are the zodiac. You are a walking, living, breathing zodiac. And it's not something out there that's telling you how to live or what to do. With all of it, like it's empowering you to recognize the unique blueprint of your soul, the unique reasons that you're here. And yeah, if it's not empowering you and if it's creating like disempowerment and like just more so outsourcing your power to someone else, and I think it's the interaction is wrong from the get-go, you know?
Yeah.
Totally.
Amy, what did your process look like? Of course, you were living this life and then you were kind of investigating and learning, and then you came across human design. And like, what was that process like? Like, oh, I'm a projector. And then you read about being a projector and learned about being a projector. And then did you share what your authority is? Are you
No, I'm splenic.
okay? So, like, learning about having a splenic authority, like, what was your deconditioning process like? What was your awakening into human design and kind of living more like yourself? Like, what was that like?
Mm. Yeah, really unsexy. Like I often described, it's like it was actually a very unsexy, process, very uncomfortable in a lot of ways. I was so at the time I was working for fashion brands in like admin HR. And so it was interesting for me because projectors we learn through the other. So I just, I was learning about my chart, but I actually just started applying it to the not really telling anyone, but I just started, well, people would, I think, would guess because I'd ask for their birth details. But I started applying it in like my work environment and was using it to sort of observe the people around me. Um, but when it comes to deconditioning, I really had to start with the sacral and deconditioning the sacral out of just survival and
Mhm.
necessity. So, because I'd been through burnout so many times, and I was, the fashion, I also, it's funny as a projector, but I seem to choose industries that also just were quite hardcore as well. So like you go into the fashion industry and it's like big hours, big demands, which just really isn't very healthy for anyone, let alone a projector. Um, So I had to start with the sacral. And so I really focused on that in the beginning. And that was sort of when I looked at all the not self patterns in my chart, that was the one that felt most prominent at the time. Then I also have an undefined ego, completely open ego, and an undefined solar plexus. So then they were like the next two sort of big journeys or patterns for me. And I had a realization. I was still working at the time, but I realized like my whole career, every promotion, every raise I'd ever had was literally me being rewarded for my not self. Like everything, being the good girl, proving, overworking, overdoing. How can I please? And my bosses would even say that to me. I used to work really closely with like the directors and the CEOs of the companies I worked for, and sometimes it's like they just liked me to be there and be in the space because it's like I was the problem solver, and I would seem to find myself in these positions where I would be the person who understood everyone else's roles. So someone else is away and I could be filling the gaps even in someone else's role. So it was just like, but again, overdoing it and completely overextending myself. So yeah, I always say deconditioning is really cyclical too. So I feel like I've gone through seasons of, big deconditioning, and then I might think I've resolved that pattern. And then that not self, it kind of comes back. It gets really good at masking itself. I think it can be really sneaky. A lot of the process for me was, I guess, noticing the unhealthy things that I'd been celebrated for as well, because the not self, especially in work and business, it is usually, it's often celebrated, um, I'm so grateful I have a defined root in my chart, because I think it could have been chaos if I had an undefined root as well, because, the undefined root person who can do the work of 4 to 5 people in a day, and they're celebrated and they're rewarded for that constantly. So I'm always grateful that I have like that center defined in my chart. It gives me like an anchoring and stability.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of it was relational too, realizing as a projector all the relationships that maybe weren't reciprocal, all the places I was trying to get people to see me and notice me and recognize me,
Yeah.
that I just wasn't.
Such a dysfunctional kind of like a rabbit and stick scenario when you're being rewarded continually for being not who you are. And then, your North Star in life becomes, let me suppress my real self as much as possible. And then just this not self and conditioned version of oneself becomes more and more to the egoic forefront, because like, oh, this is what people are paying me for. This is what I'm getting a raise for. This is what and like, no wonder we see so much, dysfunctional around us.
Yeah. Amy, also, I'm curious your thoughts, whether it's your personal experience or even with projectors, or non-energy types that you've worked with. You find that they're the types that especially if they're operating from the not self, they're more likely to be reliant on stimulants and coffee and other substances in order to keep up, So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, totally. 100%. Or we become addicted to sacral energy too. It's
Oh,
like
gotcha.
we can start to rely on, we need to plug into the sacral being in our life, or we need to go to the cafe, or, we need to get that as well. Yeah, I find people who have defined roots tend to do a little bit better with things like coffee, so the undefined roots, it can be a little bit more, I don't know, like not dysfunctional, but maybe not as supportive for the undefined root.
Yeah, I have a
Um,
completely open route. And I mean, I
mm,
only have 3 centers defined, but completely open route. And I like stimulants, even though I've had my fair share of experiences with them in my life. They're not ideal for me.
yeah.
I can enjoy them once in a while, but yeah, I went 11 years without any types of stimulants because it wasn't ideal. But yeah, that's
Mm,
interesting.
Yeah. Something you said is really interesting to me, like with the deconditioning process, which is like you kind of went through the not self themes intentionally, like sensor by sensor. And I don't think many people actually think about it that way. Like I'm intentionally deconditioning this not self theme, as opposed to, we call human design, the deconditioning process in general. And we kind of just do it more so haphazardly by like living my strategy, whatever, I'm going to decondition. But I feel like there's a way to do it more effectively, maybe if you're actively working with a sensor at a time.
Yeah, I find that to be, for me, it was the most helpful approach. And it's usually the way I break it down for clients. And it's not that, like, I mean, nothing really functions as, like, exists in a vacuum in the chat. Everything's,
Mhm.
all the dysfunctions feeding off the other dysfunction, and it's all kind
Yeah.
of presented usually in this kind of mishmash of dysfunction that you have. But for me, just bringing intention to, like, okay, I'm really going to pay attention to all the ways I'm trying to prove myself, or all the ways because for me as a first line projector too, completely open ego, I can get really hooked on self-improvement
Mhm.
and, like, obsessive about it, So I went through seasons where, actually recently I had another season where I was like, I'm just reading fairy smut and romantasy and fantasy books, and I'm not reading another self-help book. I had like 18 months of, like, no personal development. I'm okay right now, and I
Yeah.
think there's still, even for undefined egos, there's still a place for personal development, but it's when it becomes, you're stuck on it, and the motivation behind it is like, there's constantly something wrong for me. So no, but what I find when people start their human design journey, there's often one or two of those undefined centers where it's, like, really easy to recognize,
Mhm.
like, yeah, this is the pattern. This is the thing that's keeping me stuck. Like, I can see this. And then with time, it's like we can start to see the other patterns that might be there. For me, I also have a completely open head center. And
Me
that
too.
was the one, yeah, I was for years like, it's not an issue for me. I'm fine. Like, that's not even a thing for me. And then it was like 3 or 4 years into deconditioning, I was like, oh my goodness, like, Amy, that is, like, actually what's derailing you right now, So I feel like we can have seasons where certain patterns become, more to maybe move more to the forefront a lot of
Yeah,
times.
I have a completely open head and root, and for me, that was a big one. The head, just feeling like pulled in all these directions and thinking about everything, and feeling like if I got a text from someone about a question, I'm like, oh, I have to spend the next 4 hours figuring out, trying to solve this person's issues and send them all the links, and then before I know it, I'm like, where'd my day go?
Mm.
Yeah, that was a big one for me, and also the open ajna, like this need to convince people that I have the truth and that I'm certain, and that, like, they need to
Mm.
believe what I believe, like it is interesting to see how they play into each other, and how they dance together, because I have an undefined throat as well and an undefined ego center. So it's like, let me prove myself by also attracting attention, and I want people to pay attention to me. So it's all these things. Then yeah, it's very interesting for sure. But I definitely
Mm.
like kind of going by them one by one and just trying to get clear, like especially with the heart center, like, what is the underlying motivation for the things I'm saying and doing and how I'm enacting? And can I tune in and go, fuck, I just want someone to pat me on the back. I want someone to, like, tell me I'm okay. I want someone to,
Yeah.
like, say, you're awesome. You're so smart and you're so funny and you're so that. And it's like, yo, chill, bro. Fucking chill. Chill. Just live your life. You're good.
I know. Yeah, me too. I've got a completely open heart center too. So it's an interesting dance for sure, especially in a relationship. Am I good enough? Am I
Mm.
doing okay? Yeah.
So what centers do you both have? So you're both emotional and sacral. So you've got those
Yeah.
centers.
Joel's way more defined than I am.
Yeah. So
I just,
for me, it's head is open and ajna and hearts are completely open and the rest are defined.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. So define G, spleen, root.
your six center is defined,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're
And then
three, right?
what's completely open for you? You have open heart, completely open.
And completely open ajna and completely open heart.
Mm.
Gotcha. And then undefined head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have G center definition, sacral definition, and solar plexus definition.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And do you know what channels define your sacrals?
Yeah, I have 214, 59, 6. Joel and I both have 59, 6.
Oh, nice.
214, and then why am I forgetting? It's the one to the right of 214,
20,
25,
twenty,
46,
29, 46.
29, 46.
Discovery. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
those are my three channels.
Yeah. For me, I've only got one channel off my sacral, which is the 59.6.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful. That's
and then,
nice. You have that in common, like friendship, companionship through that. It's beautiful.
yeah, and I also find too through that too is like with the podcast, and even just I've noticed this in person in my relationships, like people open up to me
Yeah.
like very deeply, and I found that we've had multiple clients, multiple guests on a podcast tell us that, like, oh, I've shared something on this podcast that I've never shared before. So
Mm.
I think that plays into it a little bit. But yeah, and then I'm left angle cross of education.
Mm.
So 12 is my personality sun, and then Joel's left angle cross of uncertainty. 14 is personality
Mm.
sun.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, it's been a fun journey. You know, I as someone who also loves self knowledge and personal
Mm.
development, and it's been really cool to see how these systems and different systems have really just allowed me to get out of the compare and contrast game and be like, yo, this is what I'm about. This is who I am. I don't need to be anyone than who I was born to be. Now the process born to be, but the process of that is obviously where some of the work comes into play. But
Mm.
it's definitely been a fun journey, and I've loved it for relationship reasons. Like when I met my wife, we both knew human design, but very
Mm.
briefly because we've been together almost 11 years. And so just as we've come together, she's a 3-5 projector, I'm a 5-1 generator. It's been really cool in that sense to really get one another
Mm.
in terms, and then also trust, and then honoring each other's emotional wave because we're both emotional authorities. That's supported us in partnership too. Because a lot of times her wave would trigger my wave, and my wave would trigger her, and you just have more self awareness around it, and just allow a person like
I
some
honestly
space.
don't know how emotionals can relate to each other without understanding emotional waves. Like, I just think it'll be like my former self, the way I used to formally relate, is chaos. It's fucking chaos, man.
Yeah, and I'm curious your thoughts on this because you know a lot of they're like generic relationship advice is like, don't go to bed angry. But then my wife and I always say like, no, go to bed angry. Like go to bed, move through it, wake up, and you're in a different state instead of
Yeah.
let's just start arguing while we're deep in a wave. It's like, no, I just need my space.
Yeah, try force a resolution. Well, like it cannot be attained right now.
No, exactly. I actually taught a course on this at the beginning of the year and use that as an example of like, this is very unhelpful advice, for emotional, but also for split definition
Mm-hmm.
people. So my partner, he's an emotional 2-4 Manny-Jan, but single definition. I'm a split definition projector. So even though I'm splenic, sometimes if someone's giving me information, I actually still I'm like, I don't know, hang on. Like I need to go out in my day. I need to go walk my dog. I need to go get a coffee. And then I'm assimilating like, okay, I've got the data and I know what to do with this. So I think for a lot of people, it's like actually, there are so many things that indicate like maybe I'm not going to be clear right now. And it's not the best thing to like have this out,
Yeah.
in the moment. And also I think understanding the emotional wave for everyone. So for me being undefined there, also it's like important for me so that I can be very aware of like, oh, when am I picking up on your wave? When am I amplifying just what's going on for you?
Mm-hmm.
And then how can I keep supporting and encouraging like you just to take your time, even if maybe I know what's going to happen. You just keep taking your time and keep feeling into it. So I think, yeah, and the emotional center is so interesting because the world's just not really designed for it yet, being the newest center. It's like we understand that splenic survival, fear, awareness. We understand that ajna, logical, intellectual awareness, but we're still learning about that emotional awareness, like for everyone, even people who
Yeah.
are undefined there.
I mean, just look around. I mean, I wouldn't say society and humanity is like super emotionally intelligent. I mean, it's we're in a stage of infancy with
Yeah.
that, and
Literally,
but
yeah.
yeah, but we're moving towards, I think, maturity. Is that also a piece of what the shift to 2027, the new cross, is about as well? I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit because everyone throws it out
Mm.
there. Oh, 2027. And so if you can kind of give people your summary and your thoughts on that, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I was wondering if this was going to come up because it's such it's such an interesting topic. So yeah, we're definitely, we're meant to be attuning more to the solar plexus awareness. The cross that we're moving into, the cross of the sleeping phoenix, has the 55 in it. And so the 55 is spirit abundance, spirit awareness. So but it's also just been in our evolution, so when we were 7-centered beings, the solar plexus is just in general one of the newer center that emerged. They say when we evolved in 1781 from the 7-centered being to the 9-centered being, it was the spleen and the solar plexus split, and it was the G center and the ego split. So, um, um, yeah, but I think, it will be the new beings being born really post 2027 that will probably have a lot to teach us about this awareness. But the solar plexus, have you guys explored this with like the raves and the
I have
evolution?
I have a little bit, some of that stuff can get a little bit more like esoteric in terms of like, okay, babies are being born. What are these people going to be like? But for me, looking into the shift has been more like individual based in terms of just like our need to build more capacity within our nervous system to have more, intelligence or more capacity within our nervous system, cultivating greater emotional intelligence. That's kind of the angle that I've kind of been taking it. But I'd love to hear more in your take.
Yeah, well, have you listened to the telepathy
Yeah,
tapes?
yeah.
Yeah, so I think that kind of the precursor. So I think that's speaking to the type of awareness that will develop in the solar plexus center for a lot of the children being born post 2027. So it's more, and I always try to take this with a grain of salt, but what the teaching is in human design is that there will start to be babies being born post 2027 who are telepathic basically, and they don't need words and language to communicate. They're communicating through the solar plexus and through emotional frequency. So like that's the, I guess, mutational evolution for the species is more into that.
Yeah. Do you
um
think do you think though that with that is going to come even being, let's say, your motor skills are also going to be okay as well? Because it seems like with telepathy tapes, and we can get into a whole reasoning why a person maybe becomes autistic or a savant or whatever. That's we don't
mm,
need to have that conversation. But like, are people in the future going to be able to like move and connect like how we are, but then also have this ability to maybe like just not have to use as many words? Do you know what I mean?
So he sort of speaks of there being children who do appear to be like highly autistic, but then there will still be people who have access to motor skills like we do as well. So it's like there's this overarching evolution that the whole species is going through, and then there's like this, I guess, more micro experience that these certain children will have in that as well. So.
Interesting.
mm,
You see, this is coming from Ra, you're saying? Okay.
This is part of his sort of teachings and predictions of 2027. He also, a lot of what he did, I take with a grain of salt, but a lot of what he did say, he talks about a fertility crisis. He talks about, by 2024, you want to start buying gold and silver, and that money's going to change and currency is going to change. So like
Wow.
there's a fair bit of what he has said that has kind of played out
Yeah.
so far. So we'll see, but the gift will be if these children are born, that they're so much more intelligent than we are, right? And they are so much more emotionally and intuitively attuned and tapped in, but we might think there's something wrong with them, but there's actually
Gotcha.
not. They're
Yeah.
perfect.
Well, and I think that's what like the telepathy tapes has kind of shown, because it's
Yeah,
easy to be like, oh, let's have pity for these people, these kids, and then you realize, whoa, what they're capable of, what they know, what they sense is beyond anything that
yeah.
we're experiencing right now. I mean, I've witnessed it in person. Like I've seen
Mm.
telepathy in person with like an autistic savant, and I'm just blown away, like just blown
Wow.
away. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Um,
Mm.
what have you come to understand as the relationship between like human design and the nervous system in your kind of study? Because I understand that like you're into kind of both worlds. So how do you go about bridging those worlds together?
I love this. Thank you. So I find human design works really well with parts work to
Mm,
begin with. Yeah, really just seamlessly, like they go together so beautifully, because often the not self, you can really map also the protector part, and the vulnerable sort of part beneath. With the nervous system, what I have found is oftentimes the not self, though, is where we feel safety and comfort in a lot of ways. So the nervous system can actually we can be quite attuned to our not self, even though we might sense that it's not healthy. There's something in that pattern, that gives us a sense of, well, but I know this, and I can feel safe. So a lot of the times the deconditioning journey, it's learning to find the safety in more being your true self, which can feel a bit frightening, right? Like sometimes being, fully expressed in your definition can feel a little bit confronting, because a lot of people have experiences where they're made to feel too much, or they're made to feel like, oh, that quality or that energy, that's not it. Like we want you to be doing, this other thing here. So for me, it's usually a process of that, like gently learning to find safety in the true self and recognizing all the ways that we revert back to the not self, which can also be like a comfort zone in a lot of ways, the not self, like, oh, things aren't working. I'm just going to revert back to that old habit of pleasing everyone, or I'm going to revert back to that old habit of just rushing through my days and just doing more, and
It
hustling.
feels so familiar. So it feels safe in a sense when
Yeah.
it's not really. Yeah.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, the not self gets results for people
Mhm.
too. It can create those sort of micro wins where you think, oh, this is working. And, it's when you look at it sort of in the big picture, though, that you realize, well, maybe I
Exactly.
was making money,
Yeah.
but I hate my life, or
Yeah.
I'm
I'm unhealthy. I'm
frustrated.
unhealthy, like I'm dealing with all
Yeah.
these physical issues.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So it all works really beautifully, like in my mind. I'm a quad right though in human design. So I'm like all right, all receptive, non-linear flow. So it's like when I learn different systems, like even with the gene keys now, it's like I find I'm not really differentiating things into different buckets. It's just like everything's in there as like a bit of a soup. So to me, it just all works really cohesively.
Yeah. What do you say when people go, "Oh, I'm a projector, I have no energy." Like, can you talk about that
Mm.
more? Because I feel like projectors get, "Oh, I don't have a sacral, I can't do anything. I need to sleep all the time."
Also, and
And
manifestors and reflectors. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a thing because I think when undefined sacrals find human design, they do often go through like a recalibration period where they're more tired at first, So I usually try to remind people like, okay, you're not going to feel this tired forever. You're deconditioning. So this is why like starting with the sacral for those energy types is usually really important in the beginning. But there should be a recalibration process that happens where it's like you might be more tired, but then you find your baseline and whatever that is for you. Um, I actually really don't like the whole like projectors aren't here to work thing either. Like I
Mhm.
think that gets really misinterpreted as
Yep.
well. We live in this 3D world. Like I certainly work, but it's like, what kind of work are you doing? What kind of and for projectors, work really centers around where are we giving our attention? Like that's the main thing. Someone's getting our attention and we're receiving for that in some way is the ideal. But no, and it's funny with manifestors because I think like I see manifestors as just really seasonal beings. So once they go through the recalibration, once they stop trying to generate, once they start listening to their body, they should then be still having seasons where there is a lot of energy. When they're in a surge, when they're in like a creative impulse for something, like they do have access to some form of energy. That's what makes them a manifester. But it's all about surrendering, I think, to the off season for them, like leaning in, not pushing through when they are in a rest cycle, like learning to be okay with that. And then they get the benefit of the next surge. Um, yeah, and I mean, reflectors are interesting because some reflectors are just like little energizer bunnies, though, they're so unique. Yeah, but
Yeah.
for all of those three types, so just learning to rest before they feel tired. Like the thing I always say to people is like, by the time you feel like you're exhausted, you're actually probably too far gone,
Mhm.
So coming up with strategies to just stop before you get to that point. But no, we've still got energy. I'm an energy projector though, so I've defined root. So I feel like for me, I just really had to attune to the root
Mhm.
center and move with the pulse that happens naturally for me. And I mean, one of the most helpful things for me was having a season of not plugging into sacral energy, though, which for me was COVID, when everyone was we're in lockdowns. I was probably the only I feel like I might have been the only person in the world that was like, yes, forced rest. Like I am like, yes, like I was excited for the first one. It was like 2 weeks. I was like, I can do this. This is amazing. This is a holiday. But then I was living alone and then all of a sudden not plugging into sacrals every day. So I really got to decondition through that necessary, forced period of like not getting to plug into all the
Yeah.
sacrals I had been.
My wife would joke all the time that like projectors were loving the lockdowns.
Yeah.
Just give yourself forced lockdowns. Put mandates on yourself.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah. My eldest daughter's a reflector and my wife's a manifestor. My other two daughters are MGs. But like with the reflectors, like there's definitely like some sentiments out there that reflectors are just like frail and passive and all the rest of that. But she's not that at all. You know, like she's a powerhouse in her own way, for sure.
And
Interesting.
even the way reflectors are talked about being so fluid and transient and needing, I have two reflector besties and I watch both of them. I'm like, you're actually really solid.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that Teflon coating, the sampling,
Yeah.
is, yeah, I don't feel like they're frail or sensitive at all. But I think it's helpful to watch for them, like when they start to feel stale, stagnant, in environments that maybe that's not the most supportive space for them. But no, they can be real powerhouses, reflectors.
Yeah. The interesting to watch is like the four others of us are all emotional, so seeing how she gets impacted and is amplified by everyone else in the house's emotions, that's sometimes interesting to navigate. Yeah.
Amy, so when you work with someone, okay, that someone comes to you to have a human design reading, do you have a certain process? Does it depend on the person's chart and what they're looking for? Like, how would you go about working with someone in a reading?
Yeah, in a reading, I always have sort of questions that I get people to answer like before coming in so that I tell things to people now. Like I used to offer sort of specific readings for specific things. And I've just realized over the years what works best for me is like, this is the session. Tell me what you're wanting to get out of this because some people come and they just want to learn more about, how to create more opportunity or how to get unstuck. Like that seems to be a big thing. I seem to attract a lot of people in transition. So, and particularly people going through Pluto transits in their astrology. So usually what I'm doing is also, even if it's not a full transit like forecast, even if we're just looking at someone's design, I'll still look at their transits so that we can speak about like the current season they might be in. And I find that can actually be often the most helpful thing, just sort of affirming like, yeah, you're kind of in a winter, or yeah, this has probably been really shit. Like, and it's not going to last forever, and you're coming out the other side of it now. And here's what I see the lessons having been in your chart, or the way you can kind of hopefully work with that, that energy in a more helpful way. So yeah, they tend to be, but yeah, I attract a lot of people in transition, like going from one thing to the other. So between jobs, between works, or something feels like it's not working anymore. And a lot of that, and the longer term work I do with people is a lot of that, like it's really a portal for deconditioning, I see it as, and continuing to sort of just illuminate all the ways that not self is distorting their decisions or distorting the process, keeping them stuck. That's really how, because I work with a lot of like executives and business owners and people who aren't in this world of human design and astrology. And so that's how I always describe the not self. It's like, these are the patterns keeping you stuck. This is the distraction, right? This is distracting you from what you're actually meant to be doing. And so, yeah, that's what a lot of it is. How do we stop distracting ourselves?
Yeah. The other question I have, because it's been brought up, I think, many times, like how does a person differentiate between sacral response or splenic response and
Mm.
conditioned like traumatic response? You know?
Yeah. So the way I describe, say, splenic awareness is there's a calmness to it. So even though it's connected to like fear and survival, it's not manic. And so usually when it's like a kind of manic, chaotic, activated, charged fear, it's often usually like you're picking up on someone else's stuff, is the way I try to describe it. But they are quite different. I think the sacral is more of a felt experience, is what I don't experience that as a projector, but from what clients have said to me, like a lot of people actually feel the sacral response. The sacral response also comes with energy to do. So if something's a yes, but for you guys it's a bit different being emotional, so it's like yes over time.
Yeah.
If there's energy available to do, then that's going to be the biggest indicator. Also for sacral response, it's the sounds, it's the feeling, do you guys make sacral noises? Do you notice yourselves?
I feel like a lot of times I'm like grunting or making noise
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like,
It's,
yeah.
it's
Like
so funny.
like my wife might present something to me and I'm like I just like wave my hands and I just like, nah, I just know it's not for me. Granted, of course, I'm an emotional authority, but like not with every decision in my life isn't going to be like, oh, I'll wait 24 hours to let you know what to have for dinner tonight. You know what I mean? So
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. It's so funny, my female clients, because the grunting and the sacral noises are so conditioned out of sacral beings. Like, it's like, that's not polite. We don't do that. And
Use your
it's so,
words.
yeah, it's so funny. My female clients will be like, I actually am grunting. I've had people say, like, literally say, I'm grunting. It's like, yeah, let it out, pay attention to that. So whereas this, splenic awareness is going to be softer, splenic awareness doesn't come with the same sacral generative type energy. So it's very nuanced. I think for each person, it's just about attuning to what does this actually feel like for me in my body. And that's why I tend to focus on the not self, though. Like, if you can keep bringing awareness and attention to the not self and catching, all the ways, because the not self can really distort the decision making process. It can make your response hard, hard to hear, hard to feel. So if we're still illuminating that and bringing awareness to that, it actually makes it easier to sense when it is your authority. But I think it's something you slowly as well gather evidence for over time of this is what it feels like for me. This is, and I have evidence for this working even when it didn't make sense.
Yeah. And the thing too, I think about with like a 3 line, that's constantly in this
Mm,
refinement discovery process. It's like that yes may not lead them to something that's like all roses and butterflies. That yes may just lead them to the next stage of that refinement process. So it's like to have that ability to self-reflect, like, oh yeah, that was a correct decision for me, even though it led to, let's say, crashing and burning, because who am I after the crashing and the burn? You know what I mean?
yeah, totally. It'll never be perfect, right? But they won't keep making the same mistake over and over as
Yeah.
well. They'll make it, they'll learn, they'll transmute it, and they'll have wisdom to then share from that. Yeah. I'm third line, even though I'm a 5-1, I've 8 third line planets in my chart. So I actually a
Okay.
lot of the time feel like I'm a third line and that I'm just, you know, doing that a little, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you found, I guess, since more so living attuned to your design, because I guess there's like it's a question in the back of everyone's mind. Like, if I let go and decondition from all these things that have led to like prosperity, in the way that I've been doing them, am I still going to be able to attain that or access that now by trying to like decondition and live more attuned to who I am? So how has your relationship to, I guess, quote unquote, prosperity shifted or evolved since coming more so into your design? Like, obviously there were fears around, stop trying to prove my worth, stop trying to overwork, et cetera, et cetera. So how have you come into prosperity through living your design more so? And is that something that has felt more coherent to you now?
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And I would say the prosperity I experienced before human design, it never felt like that. It
Yeah.
felt like it was achieved through struggle. I actually have the channel of struggle though, too. So it's like when I'm not self, I'll struggle for all the wrong things. But it felt so even, money, different things like that, it always felt difficult and it felt hard. Whereas the experience for me, since really anchoring into my design and living my design, I feel like I still work hard. Like I feel, because my ethos is coherence over hustle. And I feel like people misunderstand that a lot of the time. Like I'm definitely not the like you do nothing and you just attract.
Yeah.
I have desire motivation. Like I can be very like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm making happen. But there is a sense of flow. And for me, it's the difference between pushing a boulder up a
Mhm.
hill, which can still be satisfying. You get there and you're like, fuck yeah, can
Yep.
still be satisfying in lots of ways, but it's difficult.
But
Versus,
it's pushing the right boulder up the hill.
yeah, well, it's for me, because I'm a projector, success for projectors is a little bit different. Like projectors, we tend to overcomplicate things. And actually for projectors, the process should be much more easeful when we finally let go of all the mental conditioning that's keeping us stuck trying to generate and trying to manifest. It's like, actually, it is like a slipstream. It should be. So that has been more of the experience for me. But it's been a process of precision too, like really learning what do I actually want to focus my energy on? And the more precise I am with this is what I do. It's these 3 things that I really do in my business. It's like then the success, everything just feels like it's so much more in flow for me personally. So, and, living my design has opened me up personally to definitely newer levels of prosperity. And I would say even, not just in like money and things like that, but even in relationships, like my relationships now are
Yep.
so much better than they ever were. Like even not romantic, but just even like that is, but also friendships, relationships with my family, my parents, my siblings, like all of that area, those areas of life are just so much richer for me now.
Yeah.
So for me, it's prosperity in so many ways.
Yeah, it's because, from my perspective, those relationships are now being, formed and deepened based on a foundation of truth, based on a foundation of self-knowledge, self-trust, self-acceptance. And of course, like that's what we need for any form of prosperity, is to come from that level of strength.
Yeah, totally. And complete like radical acceptance of the other, and not expecting people to be like me when they're not, Yeah.
That's the thing I love about human design, is just like, I don't need to kind of force someone into my world to do, say, act, and think the way I do. It's like, hey, I'm going to be myself to the best of my ability, and I'm going to allow you to be yourself to the best of your ability. And
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. My relationships, since I've, gotten to know human design and, explored it within myself, to just become richer and fuller and more grounded. And I mean, no drama really. Like, I don't really have drama in my life,
Mm.
like in my primary partnership with my wife and even with my friends. I mean, Joel gives me shit sometimes, but it's okay.
But that's the thing. Like, there's no blankets ideal. It's like the ideal is different for each person. And like so often we can find a self-help book, or we can, see how Hormozy achieves success, or how anyone else achieves success. But like they're built completely differently. So trying to force yourself down a pathway or into a philosophy that maybe isn't necessarily attuned to how you're built can be extremely frustrating too,
Yeah. I mean, sure, you can be inspired by others, but you have to filter it through the lens of
Yeah.
like reality of who you are and the kind of person you are and what, your authority is saying and what you're drawn to, as opposed to, oh, let me just judge myself because I didn't make $100 million over in one day,
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I feel like it's given me so much more peace and even just simplicity in my life. I'm not wasting even just the amount of mental space we waste thinking about those things, ruminating on those things. Why am I not doing that? Why haven't I created it that way? Should I do that? It's like, just don't think about those things anymore.
Yeah. Especially in relationship, like with my wife. Like, she doesn't want to be around a frustrated generator. So she's not going to
No.
force me to do something that I don't want to do. And like, so she's like, she trusts and honors like the things that I'm into and that I'm lit up by and excited by, as opposed to forcing me to do something that she wants to do. It's like, yeah, we have this relationship where we're together and we do things together. And at the same time, like, she's in her little world doing her thing. I'm in my little world doing my thing. And, it's definitely beneficial because, yeah, like, which she's gonna guilt me and emotionally manipulate me into going to some event that I don't want to be at, and then I'm gonna be there the whole time. This fucking sucks. I don't want to be here. Who wants to be around a frustrated generator? I don't.
Yeah.
No.
Sorry, go.
It's like no one wants to be around a bitter projector either,
Yeah,
right? Like that's
exactly.
the worst. Like,
Or an angry manifestor.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's probably actually.
I mean, I had 2 manifestor parents. Both my mom and dad are both manifestors, so that was interesting, but also great at the same time.
I love manifestors. I have a few manifestors in my real life, and they're actually when they're in their true self, they're so the peace
Yeah.
that they emanate. It's just so lovely to be around. And I
Yeah.
think they can be a real thing for manifestor women with the closed and repelling aura. You know, when they learn about that, it's like, what does that mean? Like, am I cold? And it's like manifestor women especially can be so warm and so inviting, and
Oh,
it's so special
100%.
when they let you into their aura. It's like, thank you. It's like the sun's shining on you. It's so lovely and so beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like, but it's like that doesn't, there should be no pressure to be that all the time for a manifester, especially in like modern day, like polarity teachings. Like the woman just needs to be constantly soft, constantly flow, constantly overtly feminine. You know, like that doesn't necessarily fit 100% of the time for a manifester woman. That's not supposed to.
Hmm.
No. Does it flow better for you when your partner, when she's initiating? Like, do you find that everything just kind of works out
Oh,
and
yeah.
syncs?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, and that's the other thing,
Mhm.
like with the manifestor, like, and the same goes for any relationship, like we can't read each other's minds. But particularly for
Yeah.
the manifest, like for her to inform like where she's at, what she wants, what she expects, like it's just so much easier for me to then to respond. And for our day to be in flow when I know, you know, where
Mm.
she's at and what she wants to have peace today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I when I first learned about manifestors, and then I went home to New Jersey at the time, and experienced my mom after having this information, it all made sense. Like, it just made sense. I was able to just like accept her more and realize like she's just always informing. Always.
Mhm.
I mean, if I were to call her, she'd pick up the phone and just start informing about what her day was, what's going on, what she's going to do later, you know, when she's going to put food on the stove, what, like, it's just, she just naturally like is herself in that way. I don't know if it's because she was thrust into like some that behavior to some degree, because her mother was like shot and killed in the mountains of Greece when my mom was 6 years old, and she was the eldest of her siblings, so she had to become like mom in some sense, you know? And so it's just like this leadership and this initiation kind of quality was just kind of there and innately, but then like her life circumstance, you know, allowed it to really shine in a sense, if that makes sense to you.
Totally. That's really beautiful that she is so like empowered in that and in her voice and is using that in a healthy way. Because a lot of manifestors have conditioning that shuts that down, you
Oh
know, when
yeah.
they grow up with parents who try to control them. You know,
Well,
often or
my
teachers.
mom has 9 gates coming off of her throat. I've never seen
Mm.
that in a chart. 9 gates.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
And she was the person, like, even growing up in, like, our community or in church group or whatever, like, when she would talk, everyone would just be like, "Huh?" They just, like, turn their head, like, she just has that, you know, it's
Yeah.
softened a little bit, she's 82 now, but she's fierce in that way, like, you didn't mess with my mom, you know?
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, very often, like I've noticed that, you know, manifestors are generally raised to be the biggest people pleasers in
Mhm.
some sense. Why do you think that is, if you have any perspective on that?
Yeah. So what? Because of the throat center is one of those centers we really feel and notice. Like you said, when a manifestor enters the room, when a manifestor speaks, everyone actually really feels that because all energy in the chart's trying to get to the throat because
Mhm.
that's where we in humans we manifest. That's where action happens from. And so usually what happens or what can happen often is that a manifestor child is born and through no fault of theirs, definitely, and not, you know, no fault of the parents or teachers or anything, but there can be this sort of weird mechanical thing that happens where people feel that throat energy and the
Mhm.
impulse is control, dominate, keep this safe, you know, this is whoa, like it's like they feel the power of the manifestor. And so their default is I need to lock this down. And so what happens is a lot of manifestors then learn, oh, if I speak up, mum says no. If I speak up, someone interferes. If I tell people, if I inform and tell people what I'm going to do, if I ask permission, it's a no, you know, so they need a lot of resistance in childhood, usually, if, you know, especially if people aren't aware. And then, so yeah, manifestors can be so shut down in the
Yeah.
throat and they can really learn from a young age to be secretive and to keep what they're doing under wraps, you know? And so they'll still be initiating, but they won't be informing and telling anyone. And then what happens when they're adults is they actually then meet more resistance.
Yeah.
So it's this whole unlearning of like, oh, hang on, if I do inform, it reduces resistance, but patterning through childhood is usually the opposite happens. Um, Yeah, because they're naturally going to take charge. Can you imagine in a classroom, like with a teacher, especially like our parents' generations, like in the 60s, in the 70s, like, they would have felt like, oh, this is a big energy and I need to control this person. So, yeah, conditioning can be really deep.
Yeah. Makes sense. How has your relationship with like divinity or like synchronicities shifted since living more attuned to one's design? Like, do you sense synchronicities are more abundant in that sense?
Yeah, more abundant, and I'm not trying to force it
Yeah.
as well. I often say, like, I don't feel like I even like actively manifest anymore. Like,
Yep.
10 years ago, I was very much in the like, I'm manifesting, I'm journaling, I'm doing these big new moon rituals, where, I'm doing all sorts of things. I'm smoke cleansing myself, and I'm, doing all of these things to create what I feel like I need. And I feel like my experience now of synchronicity and flow and the divine is that it just happens the more I live as myself and the more I move as myself. I feel like I've really tapped into, though, that state of passenger consciousness that they talk about in human design, which is really the flow state that you achieve once you're living strategy and authority. So now, like, just even in my day to day, like the way I manifest is follow my strategy and authority, and I'm just constantly creating. Um, and then, yeah, there's beautiful synchronicities that happen. There's also, for me, a lot of wisdom in the things that I find myself not doing too, like now I look at everything as being more a clue from my body, and I know if I'm in that state of passenger consciousness where the mind is just witnessing, if there's something that I'm not doing, more often than not, it ends up being there's a reason for it. And it's actually the intuition and the intelligence of my body being like, actually, no, don't do that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if that answers but I feel like my connection to the divine feels just more effortless now.
Yeah.
That's a good word, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there and it's present, and I just get to be me every day, and then I'm tapped into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Such a good feeling to just be you, right? Such a
Mm,
good feeling to not
yeah.
live in this state of constantly self-criticism or self-censorship or over analyzing every gesture, every word out of your mouth, to just really be in that state of like you're just you're flowing through life. I know everyone uses that word flow, but you're flowing through life. It doesn't mean everything's always going to be perfect and amazing, but I just feel like, the signature is present
Mm,
so much more, you
mm,
know? Yeah, that's what I found for sure. There's just like, for me, I just feel like this underlying contentment and satisfaction in my life,
mhm,
in my relationships, in how I'm just spending my day to day. And just more blessings keep coming into your life.
mm,
And you're not trying to do it, because all you can do is do the best you can to be you, and then the appropriate circumstances come in front of you, and then you're responding appropriately, and then what comes from that? Like, what comes from correct decision making?
Mm.
I mean, like, how many decisions do we make in a day? And if we have a technology or the ability to make more correct decisions, where does that lead us? So yes, we have certain things out of our so-called control in terms of where we're born, who our parents are, the time period we're born into. But like, once we get to a certain place, or even a certain age, it's like we have this ability to choose. And how are we choosing? And then where are those choices taking us? And so that's another reason why I loved human design, because there's this like unique way of deciding.
mhm,
It's like, oh, there's a thing called authority. Oh, what is that like? Like, I am so grateful I learned about being an emotional authority, where I can just kind of be like, all right, I'm on a wave. Just even telling myself I'm on a wave and to chill has impacted my life in so many amazing ways. And even before I knew human design, when I'm thinking back to like my teens and my 20s, maybe, yeah, to my late 20s, I like a lot of the major decisions that happened in my life were through honoring strategy and authority, like not forcing, waiting, responding, but then not jumping into something right away and going, "Ah, I feel like I need to take a little time and feel into it." And then I'm like, okay, cool. This is the path I'm going to take. And then where has that led me? And so, yeah, it's been a fun experiment so far. I'm looking forward to seeing how it continues.
That's really beautiful. So you had the evidence for that working for you.
Yeah. Well, even like,
Mm.
as I got into more personal development or years ago when I started coaching or doing body work sessions and like, people go through courses or they pick up a book and they're like, you need to do life this way. This is how you need to do your business. And you should create a website right now. And I'm like, I'm just going to chill and like wait and see what happens. And then like I'd get emails or text messages and then I could go, oh yeah, I want to work with this person. I don't want to work with this person. And so, yeah, there's definitely evidence for it. And there's more and more evidence for it. And I feel like even Joel and myself, we met what, 4.5, 5 years ago, whatever it is now. And like, how do we even approach this podcast? How do we approach our business and the work that we do? It's like using human design as well to really trust ourselves and to, not make emotional decisions and not respond when we're in a heightened state or a lowered state, or even not to judge ourselves when we're in the ebb and the flow. Like maybe we're not feeling super motivated, or we don't have the willpower, as two undefined heart centers, and not to beat ourselves up and be like, I don't need to fucking prove myself to anyone. Like things are going to ebb and they're going to flow and there are different seasons. And again, I'm not saying this to say it's perfect all the time, but you just build greater and greater awareness. And how does that serve me? How does it serve Joel? And instead, how does it serve what we're building together? And so to have the common language and the compassion for self and other, I mean, I can't even put like a price on that. Like it's priceless.
Mm. Do you find now that there's less sort of justifying and explaining your decisions as well? Like, do you feel like, um, you
Yeah, in
know,
some ways. I mean, because it's just like,
mm,
this is my decision. This
yeah,
is what I'm doing today. Or, I mean, in a business sense, obviously we're having more conversation and things and we're bouncing things off one another. But, um,
mm,
and maybe we kind of check one another like, hey, let's wait. Let's just not, let's wait. Let's not move forward. Let's not send the email out yet. Let's not make an announcement to our community. Like, because, we're two generators and we can get really excited and kind of feed off one
mm,
another, but we also have to check ourselves and each other at times. Like, let's come back to this tomorrow.
Yeah.
mm,
I have like a lot of creative energy, and like when like I get like an idea or a burst, and like the high of my wave is like super strong. Like this is like God speaking to me right now kind of thing. Like in the past, before really understanding my emotional wave and my human design, it's like that impulse to want to grasp this idea and act on this idea like immediately and execute on it, almost as if it's this scarcity relationship with it. Like if I don't take advantage of it right now, it's going to go away, it's going to disappear, but being more discerning on what ideas are actually worth executing on has been so massively beneficial to me over my time with human design, for sure.
mm. Do you sometimes just run with it a little bit when you're in the high of the wave, like even just like as a way of moving the creative energy? But
Oh,
when,
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But it's when like I can run with it as long as possible when it's just me, if it's less consequential. But if it
yeah,
involves engaging someone else or bringing someone else and impacting consequential things, then I'm probably not going to do that, but I'll exhaust that if it feels right in the moment, just within, my context.
mm, mm. Yeah, something I find for emotional, particularly generators and money gens, is there can be something in the like, even if it's not a definite yes, the starting to bring some structure to it or the starting to play with it, which then sort of still informs the wave process. So it's like it's such a dance in like
Mhm.
we're not fully committed, we're kind of trying it and we're seeing how we go with it, but then also not wanting to waste
Yeah.
days of energy on something or that's not going to go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but when there's real lit upness there, it's never a waste for me,
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
really. Like even like as a musician, like I'm a hip hop artist and a songwriter as well. Like if I'm lit up about a track or an idea or a verse or whatever it might be, like it feels good just to be in that process. Even if I listen to it the next day and I'm like, nah, this ain't it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always a worthwhile activity for me personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's honoring the authority because you're doing the thing. Like for instance,
Yeah.
how many times have like I taken out my notes on my phone and like wrote a response to someone, like someone coming into my DMs and like going off on me because our podcast episode was on some controversial subject. And then like, I might be on a little bit of a wave, but I don't respond right away. I take out my notes and I get that energy moving. I get it out. I put it away. I come back the next day and I go, oh yeah, I'm going to delete 70% of that and reword the 30%, or just not send anything at all. And so I feel like you kind of have to go through the process, but it's like the finality of it. Like it's you, Joel, announcing, I created a new track today. Meanwhile, like on the day that you did it, as opposed to, okay, let me go through my process. Let me be creative. Let me generate. But doesn't mean I'm going to then like release it to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
What, how do you go about navigating? You touched on it earlier, but your partner is an emotional authority and you're a splenic authority. So how do you navigate that in relationship when making decisions or being out and about? Like, what does that look like?
I think it helps that he's very aware of human design too. It was one of the sweetest things when we met is that he started researching human design, but not his design. He was researching my design and like would
That's
tell
an
me
act of
like,
love. That's a
it
massive
was,
act of love. To choose to know someone in that capacity. Sorry, go on.
it was so nice. And he'd be telling me things, about me being a 5/1 and me being a projector and me being split. So he'd done his own little journey learning about my design. For me, I guess the experience I have is me being really aware of wanting to sort of encourage and empower him to wait and make decisions, like not rushing decisions, letting him have enough time to go through his waves. So even at the moment where just sort of navigating, like, are we going to travel through November, December? Where are we going to go? We've got some time where we can be a bit nomadic. And even though I have kind of a feeling of where we might end up going, I'm actually just sort of leaving it, like he's going through his process with it, right? And collecting the data.
Yeah.
And so I'm just very aware of him needing to go through a considered and deliberate decision-making process. And we usually end up at the same place, just taking a different sort of route. He's really good at listening to me. I think if I am like, oh, like, so an example, yesterday we went for a walk and I was like, after the walk, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to walk down that way. Again, there was just some groups of people there and I was like, I felt really anxious while I was there and I was really amplifying someone's stuff. And I know it was someone's stuff because I've come back and I feel good. I feel grounded. I'm like, there was just something off for me. And so, and that is kind of how that splenic awareness works. Oftentimes it's like you get the no.
Yeah.
Or for me, it's like if it feels a bit charged, like what am I picking up on in the field? So he's really good at listening to me with stuff like that. If I'm like something doesn't feel right or this isn't really what, I'm not getting a strong yes for this. So I think it's really just through awareness of the other. Even for me, like we've had conversations, it's so nice to sleep in bed together, but as a projector, like I definitely still need some nights on my own in my own aura every now and again. I know Ra in human design was very like you should sleep alone all the time, which a lot of people do and it works. In this season, that's not what I want to do, but I make sure I incorporate either some nights or some naps. He's a 2/4 too, so we're very good at giving each other, like he's a hermit. So it's like and I'm first line body. So it's like giving each other the space and the time alone. I think we're both very supportive of that.
My
But
wife and I have separate bedrooms. Yeah, but we go to bed together. Like we're together, we spend time together, and then I get up and go to my room. Because we just sleep better. We sleep better that way. But we still need the connection and the contact. It's not like, So
Hey, I want to ask you, because this is kind of like a common frustration that's been expressed to me by manifesting generators that I know. And it's like the frustration that comes from being interested in so many things and feeling the urge to start so many things, to have so many creative endeavors, but like not knowing which ones I should actually be following through on like a long-term basis. It's kind of like this idea of like just juggling all these pots and feeling like you're moving nowhere, so to speak. So do you have any advice for MGs in that capacity?
yeah, sometimes I feel many-gens, they can make things difficult for themselves because they sometimes something can be good and right for them, and I actually think a bit of a not self-distraction for them can be not giving something like the devotion and the love that it it really sort of wants and requires. I think a big thing for them though is recognizing like I don't have to monetize every single interest that I have or every single hobby. I don't
That's
have to make
massive.
yeah, like I can enjoy these things. And because what happens to them, it's like they're like it's this ecosystem, right? So like, if they have a big response to golfing, even though that might not have anything to do with their coaching business, it's like giving the space for that each week actually has a flow-on effect because they're then in response, they're then more satisfied, they're then better in their coaching business as well. So I like to describe it to them as like, look at it like it's this flower, you're a flower, your business is a flower, you've got all these different petals, right? And you're kind of nourishing all of them. It's this ecosystem, everything helps everything. But also, are you self-sabotaging by not giving the space, giving, and even like the, I think devotion, like the devotion to like what your craft is, what your mastery is, right? What your thing is, what are you building and what are you uplifting? So sometimes it's a matter for them of finding ways for them to innovate within that container
Uh-huh.
too, because that's often that I want to start something new energy. I want to start, that's what the impulse is. And it's like sometimes you can just be doing that within the container of that existing business as well. So it doesn't always have to be we're starting
Yeah,
from scratch.
you can be wearing like many different hats within the same business or the same craft or the same industry without having to have the hats outside of that, and it
Yeah.
makes much more sense that way.
Yeah. And yeah, I think showing up to like that business and what you've created with a like, yeah, this is what I'm really wanting to uplift and build. I mean, and then also I think it is a matter of self-acceptance though, in that they're not all designed to finish everything they start. Like you were talking about before, Joel, with like your music, it's like sometimes they'll start things and they might shift, but there's still something in that, like there's
Mhm.
still something in that creative process. They're learning something,
Yeah.
even though they might not use it. Um, Also, always trialing things is big for them. Like before you commit to it, just give yourself space to trial it and see,
Mhm.
dip your toes in. Does it feel good? Does this have longevity? Do I really want to be doing this? And then, maybe it is a matter of bringing in someone to help at some point too, right? Like that you don't have to. I think that's what human design shows really beautifully. It's that we're not here to do everything and be everything on our own as well. So it could be that there are really aligned collaborators or co-creators who come in and kind of help you bring that thing if it's meant to be brought to life in that way. But yeah, it's a dance for many gens because it's like on one hand, they are meant to move really quickly and they are meant to skip steps and they are meant to create efficiencies. And then also it can become a bit chaotic and they skip important steps and they jump from thing to thing to thing too. So it's finding the dance. If they are in their response though, usually if they're doing that, it's because it's not self, and it's because they're not really like responding. Maybe they're doing things again. It's the motivation behind it. It's coming from a place of I need to prove. It's coming from the undefined root. I need to rush, so it could actually be it's their not self kind of hijacking them and then they're using that beautiful motor to throat energy that they have to take action. They're using that then in a really distorted way.
Yeah. No, sound advice. So this is obviously going to be theoretical, but on like a deep soul level, how do you perceive human design? Like, would you say human design is like the design of the soul, or is it like the design of like the equipment, the vessel, or the machinery, or the personality that we needed in this life to execute on the deeper gifts and the deeper essence of who we are? Like, what aspect of self is colored by human design, in your opinion?
I love this. To me, I definitely believe we come here with the design that we need. We come here with the design that's going to equip us for the purpose for navigating the lessons, the soul lessons that we've come here to learn. I really believe we come here to kind of go to school
Mhm.
and it's a process of evolution. Um, and so I think we have the perfect design for that. Um, I guess the way the chart is in human design is that half the chart is your consciousness and your personality that comes from out there, from the cosmos. And then the other half of the chart is your form and your design that they say comes from the earth. And that's the part of you that has the reincarnations here on Earth. So this is where I guess the deeper teachings in human design is like reincarnation. It's your design, they call it your design crystal, personality crystal, right? But the design crystal, it's not a physical crystal. It's really just like a part of your energy, like it's almost like we're two parts of a soul that's held together in unification in the quantum, so that we can experience this 3D world. But that's the part that keeps reincarnating. And so we can have different incarnations with the design crystal and then different personality crystals. But yeah, I believe we have the perfect design crystals for what we need to do in this life. And I think the nodes, like for everyone, like your lunar nodes are really interesting to explore. Like they are there's a big emphasis on them in human design and in evolutionary astrology, in that that's the trajectory, right? We haven't come here just to stay stuck and stagnant. Like we come in here and there's a very specific path that we're kind of here to follow and evolve through. So, but I believe in reincarnation and all those things. So when I hear that, I'm just like, yep, that just makes sense to me, resonates for me.
Yeah.
Joel, you can respond.
Yeah, I was gonna like add to it. Yeah, for me, when I really feel into it, I feel like, yeah, human design is kind of like you said, like more so like the design of the vessel or the equipment that I needed to execute. But I don't feel like it's like this permanent texture of the essence of my soul, which I feel like is more so timeless. And perhaps in future reincarnations, I would choose different designs for kind of different missions.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, totally. And we've all probably had incarnations as different types, right? You've probably had a life as a manifestor, or as a reflector, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. I want to go on to this subject and hear what you have to say. I feel like after people get into human design a little bit, they start looking into maybe some of the more, I don't want to say esoteric, but getting to environment and digestion. So how do you work with those with people in terms of environment, and even like you're a cold thirst, or you're supposed to just eat in sunlight? Like, have you seen like deep transformations with people that follow like their digestion according to human design? I know there are different people in human design that maybe don't put as much value into that as others, and so I'm curious your thoughts.
Mm. So those deeper layers, my understanding is that didn't come through with the initial download of human design too. They were kind of developed over time by Ra. So I always try to keep that in mind. I do talk about this with clients every now and again. I don't put a ton of emphasis on it. I put most emphasis on the process of deconditioning, getting unstuck, learning how you're distracting yourself. I think I've seen it be helpful. It's been helpful for me. I think the understanding of cognition can be helpful. I always, though, with determination, because the way people nourish themselves, people can have a lot of trauma around that. There's a lot of like, even like with women as well. Like I'm always very conscious, even of like eating disorders and things like that. And telling someone, no, you only eat at night and just sip liquids during the day. So I'm always very mindful. I tell people to take it with a grain of salt and to just approach it as an experiment and see if it's helpful and if it feels useful and if it makes life better. I think that's the whole thing with human design in general. If it's not making your life better, if it's not enriching your life, and if it's not bringing more flow, then maybe it's not the right system for you, or it's not the right system for right now, And so I think that with determination, because I have watched people be very, I think it's easy for people to make that a mental process too, rather than I'm just living it. I'm just living my design. Like that should be ideally with human design. That's the point. You learn about it so you can forget it and you can just live your life and you're not mentally clocking, I do this because of that in my chart. So, and birth times aren't always accurate too. And that stuff really depends on an accurate birth time. And a lot of people don't, they have estimates. So if you don't know your exact birth time, I would experiment with it. I think the environment stuff can be helpful. Like there's really kind of like practical things you can do if it feels like the right environment for you. It's like I'm valleys And
Me too.
that feels
Love wide
really
valleys.
true for me. Me too.
Mm.
Really true for me. Like just the capacity that my body has for being in densely populated areas, like that I can go plug in, feels really nice, but I don't enjoy living in really busy cities, but I love going to like, London. Like I love plugging into the city and the frequency of it for a season. So yeah, I think with all the environments, they're really just like practical things you can start implementing and playing with. And the same with determination. But I don't know. So for me, I'm nervous touch determination, which is more situational. And so the teaching in human design is it's less about the ingredients. It's about the situation. But I'm also a type 1 diabetic. So it's like, actually, it is about the ingredients for me in a lot of ways, and that I can't just be eating shitloads of sugar and like all sorts of things. So yeah, I probably take I try to approach it like middle ground, like, yeah.
I mean,
What's
same
your
here.
experience with it been?
It's the same exact as you. I don't put a huge focus on it. I feel like I explain it in a similar way that you just did. Like, sure, have some fun with it. Oh, you found something on a website, experiment with it. But I mean, I'm cold thirst, and I've lately been experimenting with it more. I'm having like kind of more smoothies and things of that
Mm,
nature, and I've been enjoying it. Um,
mm.
but yeah, and so your touch cognition, is that what you said, or
Nervous touch determination, which is
oh,
more being in environments where there's stimulation, around you. But and then I'm feelings cognition.
gotcha.
So I feel feelings cognition feels very true for me too, like the spidey
Hmm.
senses experience, being very peripheral in how
Yeah.
I take in data and information.
Joel, what's your I'm touch cognition. Joel, what are you?
I'm taste, and it's very resonant for me, in terms of like
Mm,
even like taste beyond like physical taste. It's like
mm,
how my office is designed. Like, is it
mm,
suitable to my taste? Like, what I wear on a certain day like matters a lot. Does it suit my taste? It's like more so style.
yeah.
Feeds into that as well for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just need to touch everything. I love touching everything and feeling everything, and I'm very tactile.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, what are some of the biggest fallacies or distortions that you see in the way human design is practiced on a mainstream level? Or
I
the
think,
biggest misunderstandings, perhaps?
yeah, I think so. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that it's a rule book, or that like I think the not self will see it as a rule book. The more you actually attune to your design and live your design, like I was saying, the more you actually stop thinking, you're not thinking about it because
Yeah,
you are just kind of living day to day. So instead of it sort of boxing you in, it should actually be like liberating you from all the boxes you've been put in throughout your life that weren't really correct or coherent for you. That's a big one. I think the other big one I see though is that, living your design will help you make 6-figure, 7-figure months, or like everyone can be a millionaire just by living their design. Like that stuff really kind of irks
That's
me
not
because
nonsense.
no, yeah, and it's just I think there's a lot of people saw like human design like because it does there is that the connection to prosperity, right? And there is the connection to your version of flow and your version of abundance, and I do really believe it can help you live your most enriching life. But I don't know. What I witness in people is when people come into human design, it actually, the goals become less about that. And it's more about, like, for Jenna, it's how satisfying can my life be? How
yeah,
content can I be? For projectors, how much space can I have? How much time and freedom can I have? How successful can I feel in the way that I'm guiding and giving attention to other people? Like, that's more important than certain dollar amounts.
Yeah,
yeah. And like
and I think that you
the
go.
dollars ultimately come as a byproduct
Byproduct.
of that.
Mm,
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
and maybe not everyone's meant to be a 6-figure, 7-figure person, and
Mm,
so yeah, but I found that just like going for satisfaction and like healthy
yeah.
satisfaction, not like short-term gratification, has led me to a place of feeling, yeah, like great, or even brought like opportunities or finances into my life.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
yeah. Can you speak more into that? I know that's your kind of ethos is coherence over hustle.
Mm.
Is there anything more that you want to kind of say to extrapolate that point?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's so much I could say about this. I guess so my feeling when I started to say that, I obviously as a projector, hustle in general, hustle culture doesn't feel right or isn't sustainable for me,
Yeah.
that busyness and that just kind of doing it. I actually think, through the work that I've done now with so many people, that hustle mindset actually keeps a lot of people stuck because it's this kind of just do more. If you can just do more, if you can just show up more, if you can get more done in your day, it's not like I even saw something the other day that was like the top 1% of people aren't more talented than you. They just do more in their day. And there's no context or conversation about, but how do you work out what the right thing to do is? So there's
Yeah.
lots of people running around wasting time and energy and their precious life force and then the years of their life just running around thinking if I just do more, I'll create success or I'll do what they've done, right? And so to me, that's what coherence over hustle is. It's like, let's just have a deeper conversation. I'm definitely not saying don't do anything. And I'm definitely not saying like you just sit back and you just manifest and you don't have to take any action. Like, but it's about working out what the coherent action is
Yeah.
for you and getting out and working out all the ways you're distracting yourself with, I like to say misaligned and ineffective busyness, which is, I work with a lot of people who have that root center undefined. I think because I have a defined root and I feel like I'm quite a healthy root, like I really, like you guys would have seen when you email me, you get this responder that's like, I'll get back to you in several days when
Yeah.
I can. Like I really don't function with any urgency. So I attract a lot of undefined roots who are in that, where they've just been conditioned to like, if I just do, then I'm valuable, then I'm productive, then I'm worthy. And they get stuck in this hamster wheel where it's like, actually, I'm not getting any results. Actually, year after year after year, it's this monotonous experience of things just stay the same, or I don't actually make any progress in my work or in my relationships. And I'm just kind
Yeah.
of looping on this. So yeah, that's what it's about, coherent action rather than
Yeah,
mental.
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, the right, or as you say, the more coherent decisions over a longer scale are so much more potent and will lead to so much more progression in your life than just like every decision, like every single day, like pulling all the levers constantly, which is just going to be, completely draining. Yeah, I mean, that's probably in today's day and age when it comes to like entrepreneurship, that's probably like the biggest deconditioning factor that there is like us just comparing ourselves to all these people, how everyone else has done it. And like we said earlier, like the way someone else got there is not necessarily the way that you're meant to get there and could lead to very disastrous consequences for yourself.
Yeah, and I think many of us can say, because I can just speak for myself, like I know some people who, they come across on social media, they have all the followers, they have the money, they have the finances, but what's the state of their relationships? What's the state of their relationship with their kids? What's the state of other areas of their life? It's not always, ideal. And so, you have to look at things from a more holistic standpoint, ultimately. Um,
Mm.
I have this one question for you. Because I'm curious. There are some people out there that have taken upon themselves to change names of profiles and lines. And what are your thoughts on that, as opposed to maybe going from like the like source material, what Ra has, was given, or what he, developed?
My opinion on this has changed. I've gone back and forth over the years, because I feel like I'm very aware that I don't know for sure about anything. All I can really trust is sort of what I perceive and what feels right for me. I've had the biggest impact from the information where the language was retained. Personally, that's felt like it's had, so even like with some of my channels, where people will change, I have judgment and struggle, and people will change struggle. And it's like, actually hearing struggle was really helpful for me. It's like, Amy, you are creating so much unnecessary struggle in your life. Like that was, hearing that word was, in human design, they talk about like mutation, right? Like where it's like an activation and there's like actually like a cellular shift. Like that's what I felt when I really heard that. So for me, it's been helpful, but I also think it's whatever's going to be helpful and useful for the individual. And for some people, the softer language is a really nice entry point for them. A lot of people find human design through the softer language because they're the people who've changed it, or a lot of the people who've, become really big in human design. And if that leads someone to where they're meant to go, then I think that's, it can be really beautiful. Yeah. What's your experience been? Do you guys like, have you
Well,
been
I mean,
into the source material?
I tend to go with source material,
Yeah.
but even with I mean, I've heard stories that like the OG source material is very different. Like there was only two
Yes.
strategies, and so
Yeah.
I feel like it's evolved over time. And there's some people who are 100% purists that aren't into like anything that didn't come from the voice. Um,
Mm.
so at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. Like, are you taking this information in? Are you applying it? And is it improving your life? And are you getting more of
Yeah.
the things that you want and less of the things that you don't want? Are you feeling more of your signature? I mean, those are my thoughts. And as for the name things, I mean, I look at it more as like another descriptive term in addition to
Mm.
like I might say, martyr, heretic, and then maybe throw some other words in there too. And then
Yeah.
it might land for someone in a different way. Cause
Mm.
also a lot of people just have no clue when they hear martyr, like what that
Yeah.
even means. So can you share your thoughts just on that, like that one line? Because that seems to be the one that gets people a little bit, I don't know, confused.
Yeah, the third line. Yeah, that's one I often will use, like alchemist, mad scientist, like experimenter. So yeah, I'm the same. I try to use other words to give context to it. Um, the third line, I mean, the third line is really they're about transformation, so it's trial and error transformation. Martyr is it almost feels like it doesn't explain to me, it doesn't give enough context of the richness of the third line. The third line in human design is the most equipped for making money. They talk about too because of the resiliency, because of the ability to like try, fail, get up,
Well, I mean,
learn, adapt.
all of entrepreneurship is risk and experimentation,
Yeah. So they have such a gift when it comes to business because of that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I try to give context. This is how I work with the gene keys too, because I actually really love the gene keys interpretations, which to me just adds so much richness. But it's
Mhm.
like I can't really separate even the gene keys now from the gates. It's like that is just woven into how I
Yeah.
explain or talk about certain gates now. So yeah, but the original download of human design didn't have the energy types. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't even the classifications of the 5 energy types. That's something that Ra kind of came up with. So there wasn't projectors or generators. Um,
Was it
so
like to wait and to do? I think were those the only two? I forget.
yeah, I
Yeah, something
think
like that.
so. Yeah. And so yeah, and there are people who are real purists with that. And then there are people who are really purists with the more updated version of it. And then there's people who change it. The thing with human design too is part of the teachings around people who have individual circuitry is that they are always going, and they actually teach this, like in the human design school, like if you're an individual, like you're going to come in, you're going to learn what you need, and then you're going to take it and adapt it and run with it. So it's like the people who are doing that, it's probably actually just what they're wired to do
Mhm.
anyway, and so I feel very like neutral about it all now. But I've definitely been in more of the purist camp where I've been like, it's just source material, because that was what had the big impact on me. But I've really softened in that over
Mhm.
the last few years.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
Mm.
definitely. Thank you so much for your time, firstly.
My pleasure.
Secondly, like what kind of closing message might you have for those listening at this point, if there's anything kind of coming through?
I would love to just encourage people, like if they're new to human design, look at it as this system you can go away and experiment with, and that can potentially, hopefully bring more flow, and ease to your life, but not something that needs to be taken too seriously or that we need to be too rigid about,
Yeah.
And yeah, I think with where we're going leading into 2027, like the most powerful thing we can all do is really try to step into our own authority, and so if there was one thing you were going to learn about, like your strategy and authority, like being really solid in your decision making, I think is the best way to prepare for
Yeah.
how things are changing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, well said. There's so many elements to human design, but I always keep coming back to strategy and authority and all the readings I do with people, the conversations I have, like if you can really work on that and make that a
mm,
focus, like I think that's going to support you. Cuz it's easy to get lost in a lot of the complexities and the shinier things, but like it's so foundational. And it's also that's the thing that separates human design
yeah,
from these other systems out there. Again, not saying that it's better or worse, but I have found that there's something really practical to strategy and authority that I could hang my hat on that can support me. So yeah, thanks for saying that.
Yeah. Amy, where would you like to direct our audience in terms of those who resonate? How can they get in contact with you, work with you, etc.?
So I'm on Instagram, so it's amylee.co. I'm also newly on Substack, which I'm really enjoying as a platform for longer form sort of content and writings and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're the best places to connect.
Awesome. And you offer individual readings still at this point in time, or?
Sometimes I tend to open my calendar up like last minute for the month ahead, depending on what sort of availability that I have. But yeah, so I still do them sort of seasonally.
Yeah. And what's your main kind of offers regarding human design?
So I teach now more human design and astrology. So I have, I guess, I call it like an advanced training, but it's really like an intimate mentoring space where people come in. I have the courses, the resources, and then we do mentoring calls. So
Yeah.
I do that. I do readings, and then I do executive mentoring where I work with CEOs and directors, but I only work with like one or two people in that way at a time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And we really appreciate all the knowledge and wisdom that you've shared. And I've got no doubt everyone's going to get so much value from this. So thank you so much. And everyone else, thank you for listening. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Here for the Truth. Such a pleasure to offer this and to be with you and to have these conversations. And we just want to express so much gratitude for the fact that we get to do this week in, week out, have these conversations. We were just a couple of dudes 5 years ago. You can go back and look at episode 1, and we looked like completely different human beings. And to be granted, we are. You know, I love that Epictetus quote: "No man steps in the same river twice, for he's not the same man, and it is not the same river." And just to go through this journey, like, I just want to express to you guys, like, the power of answering the fucking call, right? And answering that call through the filter of your own design. It's like we started this podcast and we were lit the fuck up. We were excited, right? It's like we want to keep doing this. This lights us up. And so the question begs, how do we build our lives in a way where we get to keep having these conversations, where we get to keep doing the things that light us up? And that was the path for us. It's our interests, the things that connect us, the things that bring us excitement, the things that bring us joy, the things that feel right and coherent within our very being. And bro, like, I can't believe that we're still sitting here having these. Like,
I can't believe it's been like, what, 4.5 years since we first pressed play on May 17th, 2021 for episode 1, Walking the Authentic Path.
I know, man. I think back then there's like a hopefulness that like this is like a long-term vision, and this is something that leads to us being able to remain connected and keep providing dope conversations and impacting and inspiring people. But, you know, I really do feel like we have collected a lot of evidence and a lot of data when it comes to the power of self-knowledge, the power of knowing thyself, the power of answering the right opportunities, the power of waiting out our emotional waves. And it's like, that's what I love and appreciate most about our relationship, this podcast, and our business, is that it's just built on this foundational level of truth and the truth of who we are. Our business literally is an emanation of our own beings, and this relationship and this partnership, it's built on coherence. It's built on authenticity. And this is what it's about, people. It's about, as Naval would say, long-term games with long-term people. And more in my life, I'm just discovering that real prosperity, whatever the fuck that means to you, is not played over a short scale by any means whatsoever, you know? And so we're grateful to you guys, because this could never be a possibility, obviously, without your listenership. And yeah, I'm grateful to you, bro. Like, obviously, you know, people know our story, but again, generators responding. I listened to a podcast. I'm lit up. I responded. Let me message DC Rasmus, who I have no idea who the fuck he is on Instagram. You receive a message from Joel. Oh, let me check this guy out. Oh, he looks cool. Let me respond. You know, we have a conversation podcast. Oh, that sounds good. Let's respond. Oh, I want to teach something. Group coaching program. Let's respond. And we're just still doing that, guys. We're just still answering the call. And so, you know, just deconditioning from this scarcity, deconditioning from the not self, deconditioning from all the fear of the unknown that could happen if you start making more aligned decisions. Like the payoff is just immense beyond belief. And like this really is just the core ethos of everything that we've poured into everything that we do. If you come into our community, you're going to get the same message. If you come into our group coaching program, you're going to get the same message, just hitting you so hard. Become who you were born to be. Know yourself, understand yourself. Decondition from anti-life philosophies that are telling you to play small, that are telling you to shrivel, to shrink, to just please everyone, or to hustle and to just go about things ways that are completely, distorted according to your design. There's something that you can do that you were born to give and to do that no one else was here to do. Like it's obvious, you know this, your life isn't an accident. And if you buy into the theory of randomness and accidents, then you're in the wrong fucking place, to be honest with you. Everything is intentional. How do you think your being, your purpose is not intentional? And this is what it means to rise above the herd right here. And we're grateful to be able to package systems, tools, knowledge, etc., to provide this to you. So herefromthetruth.com, obviously, you can find all our episodes, find our program, find our community, and love you. See you next time.